Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to Slouching Towards Bedlam. Last time, we found out a lot of important information. We figured out how to get the codes for the archives, and we got, so essentially, you press the triangle and you get the code for the file of the patient in that room. And there were 3 codes we could get. We got a code for room C, which is where Bartholomew, that's the room with a big hole in it, everything collapsed in on itself. That was where Bartholomew was being held. He's the guy who got executed. And room D, it was covered in writing. We have the file for Cleve Anderson. Which we need to open file F6A142, which we did not finish reading his file, but we did find out enough. So essentially what happened is he got corrupted into either being or believing that he was the protagonist of an adventure game. Like he's going through all the same mechanics as we have. I kind of want to briefly just read through everything here to make sure there's nothing else that stands out from all this. Okay. Like, when he talks about they brought me here, they control everything, that's clearly referring to, us as the players, as the people who have played this game. Otherwise, I don't know what something new is referring to, because I thought that was referring to him becoming an adventure game protagonist, but that clearly happened before, so that's a little bit ambiguous. Okay, yeah, this is where we discovered all of this. So, other things, so obviously, we still have to see, like, we're going for the whole meta game and analyzing our role as someone playing this game. That's cool. But the other thing I'm wondering, first off, there are the 2 other patients. I'm wondering how they tie into this. And also, I'm not sure, I don't see reading these files giving us like direction from what to do from here. So when we're done here, I'm not exactly, I mean, maybe I could be wrong. Well, I guess we'll have to find it out as it comes, but otherwise, I've done a little too much preamble here. We'll pick up where we left off last time, because we didn't finish with Cleve's file. March 7th addendum. Couldn't sleep. Patient's remarks kept bounding around inside my head. His internal fantasies have a nature not unlike the newest engine science of fractals. The further I dig into them, the more there is to find. A particular distress is the source of some of his information. I'm certain I never mentioned my hobbies to him and Dr. Brand's. An unfortunate end has been kept out of the public eye. Ended up in the panopticon in the early morning hours, with corridor 6's key in my hand. Wasn't certain at first what I was hearing when I brought up 6D. The system is far from perfect, and the chamber's acoustics hardly help cut down on the echoes. Looking through the prism revealed patient jerking spastically, almost rhythmically in his sleep. Patient was definitely speaking, and while some of his words, some English, some Greek, some maybe Latin, seemed understandable, I believe what I was listening to was in fact glossolalia. Random phonemes and syllables which my mind tried forming into some meaning. Conclusion uncertain. Patient is, again, clearly capable of speech. Perhaps some form of stroke or mental trauma has caused his speech to become unintelligible, and the patient's schizophrenic delusions were built to explain this. Alright, go down now to March 8th, afternoon. The chair is making noises. Further investigation and discussion with the patient has resulted in what I believe is a complete structure and definition of his internal world. Patient has changed and is no longer himself. Patient claims change has resulted from an infection. Patient is glossolalia, though this is only revealed when he sleeps and cannot keep conscious control. I conclude that the change was the onset of glossolalia, though the source is still unknown. Patient claims the infection resulted from the secrets he stole from a shadowy group he refers only to as them. I am still uncertain if this group is real and the patient has simply incorporated them into his delusions, or if they were created out of whole cloth. If that's us, I don't know how he could have stolen information from us, though. That doesn't make sense yet. The infection was never intended. It resulted from his hubris. Even they would never use it in such a way. Again, I'm uncertain what this represents. Possibly, the patient has associated some action event that took place in his life concurrent with the onset of glossolalia. Patient claims the change has caused time to become distorted for him. It is not a linear thing. This may be a metaphor for the internal mental confusion of which the patient's inability to communicate is a symptom. Patient refuses to discuss or even think on the infection, what it is, where it came from, if it may be catching. When confronted, patient cuts off all communication, entering a semi-comatose state, often shaking the head spastically. Possible conclusion: the patient believes that his glossolalia is infectious and will spread if he speaks. This may be the key to his eventual recovery. Perhaps by confronting him with a cognitive dissonance, specifically showing him that my listening to him has not infected me, he can begin to tear down the walls he's built around him about himself. Another thing I mentioned before, I just thought of this moment. The implication here is we now are controlling, I always forget the name of the doctor we're controlling, but him. He has caught it from Cleve Anderson. When we point to ourselves at triage, it's like struggles to identify us. It says some weird stuff. I think that's related, although I don't yet know why. Or how, I should say. Regardless. March 8th, addendum, night. Witnessed patients babbling in spastic movements again. Possibility they may be connected. Patient's speech definitely has a pattern about it, which encourages listeners' attention and conscious attempt to find meaning. I've decided to attempt a direct intervention confrontation with the patient tomorrow. On a personal note, I must start taking James's advice and cut down my hours. While observing the patient, I noticed that my vision blurred and I experienced a distinct dizziness. When I shook it off, I found that I must have fallen asleep at some point. I checked the time and found that several hours had passed. That's concerning. Maybe he did just get infected by exposure. I thought he got infected because Cleve died and then we needed a new host as a player, but that could be untrue. This will be the case's final note. One would have thought that I would have learned. Everything has told me one thing, I have thought another. My hubris is such as to put whatever Cleve thought he ever did to shame. Cleve is dead. Too far, too soon. My initial confrontation accomplished nothing. He refused to speak of the infection and my interpretation of it. He almost laughed when I told him my theory of glossolalia, writing back that he was quite aware of what it was and no, that was not his problem. I think that what I did next was out of anger. When I told him about my nightly observations, he was clearly confused. He said that he knew that no one had entered the chamber while he slept, that he had checked over several of his saved times. Which is when I explained the panopticon to him and pointed out the listening tube hidden in the corner of his cell. All the blood drained from his face, and he once again entered his catatonic state, though this time with much more vehemence. He spasmed and shook. It took a long moment before I realized it was different. He was speaking, a single word, yes, but speaking nonetheless. All he said was no, again and again in a constant stream. He looked up as he realized what he was doing, yet he didn't stop for a moment. He clawed at his mouth, bit until it bled, but the word kept coming. And then it contorted in his throat into a snarl as he leapt at me. I'm a fool. I had thought him nonviolent, and more. He was still weak, tired. Of course, I had never had an orderly there with me, for fear of discovery, but I had never bothered with any restraint whatsoever. though weak, he was far stronger than he looked. We struggled as I attempted to force myself towards the door and help. I slipped from his grasp and was almost away when he leapt upon me again. I pushed back, kicked with all my might. I didn't understand the sound I heard until I turned around. He didn't stand a chance. His head had hit the side of the metal door with such force that half his brains must have spilled out in a moment. The flicker of life in his eyes continued. Sorry. My voice is getting tired. That's why I have water with me. The flicker of life in his eyes continued only for a moment as I dropped to my knees beside him. He only managed to say one thing, too late, before he went out forever, leaving a look of horror and oddly pity on his face. I'll write this now, and we'll seal up the file in the archives in some half-hearted penance, such as Cleve sought here. Sometime in the future my sins find me out, then I shall pay for them then. For now I simply wish to forget all of it. Alright, well, that is Cleve's file. So, a lot to think about there. I wonder if it's like a cycle, because Cleve, of course, mentioned his hubris earlier. I wonder if that's a nod to this being the same thing that's happened another time now, with control going from Cleve to, let's point at herself again, to Thomas Xavier. So category living catastrophic error, A042, category index out of range, stack overflow. Particular identification, Dr. Thomas Xavier, current operator. So yeah, that's because it identifies us as the player as controlling Thomas Xavier, I believe is what's happening there. But regardless, we still have one more file to try to retrieve, so turn dial to D89E75. This is the one where the prism had shattered. The tape spins forward, blanking the display, then searching, another advance, then file D89E75 not found. The tape advances. It now reads retrieval failed. Oh, never mind, it's B. That's on me, okay. Alright, so we get our third and final file. We heard about Bartholomew before we got his file. Obviously this whole thing centers on Cleve. I don't know what the file for room E could be on. So I'm very excited to learn about this. We'll take file. File DB9075, Daniel McNaughton. Taken. We heard briefly about him actually at some point, didn't we? The name sounds vaguely familiar. Open file. Right, we gotta be read file DB9E75. The file is extensive, covering the 10 years Daniel McNaughton was in residence at Bethlehem before his death 2 years ago. Apparently he was kept in upper 6E for the first year, then moved to corridor 22 for the remainder. McNaughton was arrested for the attempted assassination of Prime Minister Peel and the death of Drummond, Peel's private secretary. McNaughton's defense stated that he was under the delusion of being persecuted by the Tories in his native Glasgow, who he claimed compelled him to act. This case, of course, became the first famous legal test for acquittal by the reason of insanity. Victoria's response was to order the courts to develop a stricter test for insanity, which led to the now standing McNaughton rule. Most of the later notes are by Superintendent Simon Brand, soliloquies on the McNaughton rule and its effect on both the legal system and the psychological profession. Alright. So we'll go west here. We're in the lobby. James is here. We've talked to him before. Can we actually, let's save first, just in case. I don't know what's going to happen here. Gotta mouse over. Let's talk to James. Talk to James. Tell James about Anderson. Tell James about Cleve. Ask James about Cleve. Already in the grave, I believe, sir. And know nothing else of him. I've not looked at any of his files per your instructions. Alright, what happens if so I'm thinking, what are the... We found a large iron key in one of the, oh, that's what we gotta do. I'm thinking of how do we progress from here. We found a large iron key in the file for Cleve, I believe. I think that'll unlock room 2A, perhaps. I'll unlock one of the rooms. We should go there, see what that's about. I'm wondering, because I know there's multiple, what's the word? Multiple endings to this game. So I'm wondering if, if we give James the file on Cleve and, get him infected, is, the, one of the endings. I think I first want to try using the key, both to get more information and to, try to aim for a more moral ending if I can. But, because I just realized we're out of time here. But I guess, that's, decisions to make for next time. I think I'm gonna do that here. So, look forward to that, I guess. As for now, we will call it here. And as always, thank you for watching.